Alright folks, we decided to make some tweaks here and starting out things today looking at the sun in 193 angstroms. We see a sunspot setting. It will lose its name today as it sets over the western limb up here in the northwest. And let's zoom in on that area real quick. We do see a coronal mass ejection also. We'll get to it in a moment. And there's spot 2756 in its setting mode, as well as a coronal hole stretching down from the North Pole field area. And let's look at the 304 angstroms view. We're looking at 8.5 hours of solar activity today on January 10th. There was a filament eruption, large filament up here in the northeast. This bright region here near the equator is a cycle 24 plage. Never really made sunspot, although it has increased in magnetic complexity a little bit today. And there's sunspot 2755's remnants, also degraded to plage, and a giant filament down there in the southwest. Let's look at HelioViewer real quick. There's helioviewer.org's 171 angstroms view, faded to the magnetogram. And I just want to talk about naming conventions real quick. Keep in mind, folks, if a sunspot goes all the way around the sun and then rises again, it gets named a second time. And that is because, well, let's just say Galileo didn't have stereo A and stereo B. So we need to be able to corroborate the current solar activity with historical accounts of sunspot activity, and that's why they get named twice, and that's why they must have an umbral core for a certain period of time before they get named. And let's look at the coronal mass ejection that happened. We're out at stereo A now, and there's that coronal mass ejection. It is on the far side of the sun, facing about opposite the Earth, so you won't see anything about this on the LASCO C2 or C3. And there you see that coronal mass ejection. It kicked off earlier today. It began to release around 1 o'clock this morning. And I'll just let that play through. Not sure if it's fully released out of the corona yet. It looks like it's pretty close. It's a pretty small coronal mass ejection, folks. Again, not Earth-facing, facing the opposite direction. And let's go to some more data here. Here's a GOES X-ray flux. And while it's not completely flatlined, no significant flaring or anything like that. No real sunspots facing the Earth anymore. Again, that sunspot 2756 will lose its name today. 10.7 centimeter radial flux still at 74 as we come out of solar minimum conditions and enter cycle 25. KP index down to 1. Following a brief period of instability while we made yesterday's program. Today we're going to skip cosmic rays, although if you'd like to monitor them yourself, we always link them below the video. Don't take our word for it. Go check it out yourself. And if you see something funky, send us an email, smashomash@gmail.com. Real-time solar wind could be establishing a magnetic connection with that coronal hole in the north region there. It's right in the Earth-facing zone. Excuse me. Current solar wind phi angle is 247 degrees. Solar wind density 1.04 protons, actually 1.72 protons per cubic centimeter. And solar wind speed slightly increased here at 521 kilometers a second. It looks like that coronal mass ejection actually did miss us a couple days ago there, as this looks like a coronal hole wind stream signature. We saw a density increase, and when that dropped off, we saw a velocity increase. So, looks like a coronal hole wind stream, folks. Looks like the coronal mass ejection must have missed to the southeast. There's the data from ACE, looking corroborative as usual. Relativistic electrons are still low, and the GOES electron flux has come up off the floor as we forecasted a couple of days ago. No surprises there. And let's look at the ionosphere, as it's been looking a little bit anomalous over the past couple of months. So we're looking at 6 hours of data here of the ionosphere. and a sudden discharge event there this morning, the night-facing region, the non-sun facing portion, folks. By the way, if you're wondering, the sun is going to be over this, just in front of this high frequency portion of the ionosphere right here. And let's just bring up the latest image. There's the latest image at 8:45, looking more normal. There's the GOES magnetometers. We did see a recent spike up there, and we are on the other side of the heliospheric current sheet now, at least the other polarity. Once again, as forecasted, there's the data, this 1 hour and 23 minutes old. And we're going to see continued anomalies in the GOES magnetometer here as there are some changes happening with current sheet polarity. No ability to forecast that at this point. And we're seeing sunspots just pop up with no notice at all. Again, welcome to cycle 25, folks. Anyway, there's the data. Let's bring up the last image here. And you can see that we are, as forecasted, in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, shown here in blue. Next, we'll look at the magnetosphere movie. And we did see a large spike right at about 8:30 UT. And there you see a big spike not represented in the solar wind. Looks like purely magnetism there, folks. And I would note the way that the magnetosphere reverberates. See the way it bounces back there, as a push me, pull you sort of a thing is going on. And let's not dwell on it. Let's look at the ground geospace magnetic perturbations here. Geospace delta B, and you will see large amounts of induced current over the planet right about 8:30. Here it comes, wait for it, and there it is. Large magnetic current spike, induced current, magnetic spike, whatever you want to call it. I'll play that again for you. And there's that data. That's 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan Geospace Model. If you haven't signed up for the forum yet, by the way, thanks to our new members who have signed up. I just recently put up a new post here in the most, and I invite everybody to come along and check out the most. And we're talking about cosmology here, the most, like the strongest radio source, and the most massive objects, and the most luminous objects, etc., etc. Check it out, smashomash.com/forum. There's even a free-for-all where you could write about whatever you want within the confines of the law. Let's go up the earthquake list here real quick. As we did see a 6.3 magnitude as we did yesterday's show, which is now off the list. Azores receiving a quake. Haven't seen one there for quite a while. A deep quake at Chile, 130 kilometers depth at a 4.6 magnitude. Here's a deep quake at Fiji. That one's at 489 kilometers depth and a 4.5 magnitude. I think the largest of the past 24 is a 5.4 at the South Sandwich Islands. There's a 5.1 at Papua New Guinea. Another deep quake at Chile. That one is at 96.7 kilometers depth. More aftershocks hitting Puerto Rico. Hopefully everything is being rebuilt there in an efficient fashion. And a 4.6 strikes Argentina here about 4 hours ago. That's a deep quake at 146 kilometers. Let's look at the windy.com pressure maps, and we'll let this advance through the GFS forecast. It's 356. Do you know where your pressure is? And we'll pause this at 1300 Zulu tomorrow. That's where the GFS forecast is calling for pressure zones to be. And let's move on to the volcano rundown. Mount Aso, still erupting. No word on the flight level there. Sakurajima, flight level 8,000 there. Suwanuseijima in the Ryukyu Islands, flight level 5,000. Popocatépetl dispersed its ash. Sange exploding, 22,000 foot plume there. And Sabancaya emitting intermittent emissions, so a small volcanic downtick there. And we see some lightning striking in Arkansas. It had calmed down when I did show prep. Is that Missouri? Hey, Polar Bluff, Missouri. There's thunder rolling in. Check out lightningmaps.org. A wonderful worldwide monitor of lightning. Here's the null school jet streams. And we're looking at the Western world, extreme meridional jet stream flow, doubled up jet stream over the central Atlantic. And we've got some jet stream flowing the wrong way here south of the equator over South America. Here's the eastern world's jets. Looking a little more coherent, although we still see east to west flow over the central Middle East. And let's move on to a value-added service. It's a U.S. Doppler radar map. And perhaps when we receive more funding, we'll start doing worldwide weather forecasts. Anyway, there's the current state of affairs according to the U.S. Doppler radar map. And here's the U.S. water vapor map, which helps to give us insight when the Doppler radar doesn't help. And we're going to look at this convergence zone over West Texas once again, as we see Hall currents lining up big time over that convergence zone north of that dry air. So should see some interesting parallel lines in these areas. Don't worry, folks, they're not caused by chemtrails, since mankind doesn't even have the capacity to do a large-scale chemtrail program, as we don't have the aircraft or the chemicals to do lots of stratospheric injections. Those parallel lines are caused by differences in electric potential, the Hall currents which spill out of the incoming solar Birkeland currents. Anyway, there's a situation over West Texas. If you've got some interesting cloud photos, hit us up, smashomash@gmail.com. Thanks to our patrons, the assistant producers of the show, as well as associate producers of the show if you're gold level. So shout out patrons. Thanks for helping support the videos and ensure that they will continue. Now, we shot one earlier today about 32 hours of the sun, so perhaps check that out if you haven't. 19 views already. And please take a moment to press like and subscribe on YouTube, share in your social media. As we defeat our technical difficulties, we thank the Smash team for tuning in and recommend that you stay tuned for a bonus feature. We're going to look at 335 angstroms here, and it's a 48-hour video of the local yellow dwarf. And what you're seeing there is a calibration maneuver by the SDO to keep the solar disk in the center of the image. We'll do a slight zoom here of the south, and then the north, and then we are out. So there's the last 48 hours of the southern portion. And here's the northern portion, complete with the entire life cycle of Sunspot 2756, which is located by my pointer here. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.